In this video, I want to show you how you can see a sales forecast that looks like this. It tells you the total dollar amount of all the quotes that you have out and what you should expect to close in a given date range out of your database. How can you get that data at your fingertips? Well, our forecasting tool is included as part of the Project Management plugin, which you get to by clicking on Projects in the upper right-hand corner if you have that plugin. To start off with, I want to show you some of the setup or administrative functions behind the project manager before we go into creating a quote. If I click on Admin, if you've enabled the project manager, you'll see project details as a part of your admin screen. One of the first things you want to create is items and materials. This is where you're going to break your sales forecast down into different categories or lines of revenue. It's very simple. I can break this down into categories of revenue. So for me, we have subscription revenue, our AddressTwo subscribers. We have customization that we do, data migration services, design services, training, consulting services. Those are different lines of revenue I may want to track individually. Once I add those different categories, I can have the option to go even more detailed if you choose to, or you're not required to though. The other option, or the more detailed level that you can take it to, is what we call SKUs. SKUs are going to break those categories down into more detailed areas. So this is going to be called SKU number 14-7. It's a data migration service. This is a custom data import from structured source. Anytime we're importing data from some structured source like another CRM or something that has a recognizable format, we have a set price for that. The SRP, suggested retail price, is $495. I may say that our cost on it, it's labor, so it's hard to figure, but let's say we typically invest 4 hours, so let's say a $50 shop rate, so $200 cost on that. You can put in whatever your figures are. All of these fields are optional. You don't have to track cost if you don't want to. And I'm going to add that as another SKU that I can sell. Now that I've added that, I can actually include it on quotes. Now let me show you what that means. One of the things I've mentioned in previous videos is that AddressTwo is all account-centric and contact-centric. What that means is pretty much everything that you would do in AddressTwo is going to begin with whom. It's going to begin with the contacts or the company or the customer that it relates to. Same is true for my sales forecasts. If I said I wanted to go and add something to this report, to this forecast, well, this isn't the place to do it. This is just a report of the data. Where do I go to add a quote? Well, I need to look up the customer first. So if I look up Nick Carter, I find my search results, I go and view the account. We create quotes from the account detail view. On your account details screen, the third box down is going to be a gray box that says current projects. Now, as I mentioned, our project manager encompasses our sales forecasting. In essence, what we're saying is a forecasted project is it's a project that we hope to happen. It hasn't started yet, but it's still a project. I'm going to click on New Opportunity. This is going to create a project for us that has a status or a stage of, well, we're still waiting for this to close. I can give the project a title, so I could say this is going to be a data import. I can describe it. They used ACT in the past and want to import all data. I can say which contact under the account this actually applies to. Well, this applies to Nick Carter. Now this is where we get into our forecasting. When do I expect this project to close? I expect it to close sometime before the end of next week, and I'm only about 80% sure that I'm going to get the business. This is how we come up with accurate, realistic projections as to what you should expect to sell in a given date range. Date range comes from this. What do you expect to sell comes from the probability of close. We can have multiple statuses. So even within this opportunity stage or forecasted stage, we can have multiple statuses of the project. That can be, quote, sent, negotiating, shortlisted. These are just some examples that we've made up. You can create your own statuses. We can say who the account manager is, and then we can get down in here and break it down by category. So for example, if we had customization, we could describe the customization, need to add a button for this or that. We're going to bid this at 3.5 hours at our shop rate of $115 an hour. Oh, that's cost. shop rate of $115 an hour, so the total line item is $402.50. Or if I use one of those SKUs, 145-7 that I just added, it will pre-populate the rest of the data exactly as I wanted it to, and then all I need to do is put in a quantity. Put in the quantity and it populates out the total. When I'm done, I can save the project. And from here, I can actually print a quote form. Now, the quote that you'll see printed is a very generic format. What you'll probably want to do is modify that quote, add your logo, your terms and conditions, how you want your proposals to look, and email us the template that you create. We will gladly import that into your system so that every time you print a quote from here, it takes the data out of your system, it adds it into AddressTwo, or adds it into the quote, opens in Microsoft Word, and you're ready to send a quote to the client. When I close the window, this page refreshes, and now I can see that I have a data import project for $955 total, and it's still pending. More importantly, that data now shows up on my forecasted projects report. My total opportunities have increased, my forecasted index has increased, and because I calculated cost on that, I'm now actually seeing a report of gross profit in addition to gross sales. Now, if I want to get more specific with this report, I can change my date range. Perhaps I want to see what's going to happen next quarter. So I want from 8/1/2011 to 10/1/2011. And I only want to see Nick Carter's forecast. I'm only interested in his sales in AddressTwo subscriptions alone. Not interested in any other lines of revenue. I can view the report, and it will show me all matches. Of course, I picked a filter that came up with 0. Let me see if I can come up with a better one. Let me say all categories. This is a forecast of every project that's expected to close given that date range by Nick Carter. Here they are. Not only so, but it gives me a total, gross profit, and it forecasts the index. Index is the total of the opportunities times that probability. Now, one of the neatest things about our forecasting tool, though, is that we can actually record history and tasks related to a project itself in our forecast. Here I'm seeing the details that I just entered a moment ago for this project. I can see the line items, I can add items or remove items, I can track materials that may be related to this, and I can see tasks and history. History, for example, would be if I called to follow up on this specific opportunity, follow up on the quote, I can say which contact I talked to, and I can record that history entry. AddressTwo will track the history under the project details as well as the account details. Under the history, you can see that I made a call out on 7/25 to follow up on the quote. The contact was Nick Carter, but notice that it's hyperlinked. It takes me back to the project so that I can view the project details to which that call pertained.